of the things you definitely want to do is replace the gaskets on these valve covers and even the spark plug tube seals. You saw how stuck on those things got, and then the solenoid seals as well. So I want to show you the way that I get these things out of here so that we don't crack these plastic valve covers. This is the easiest way that I've found. You may find a dozen different ways to do it, but I like this way because it has less chance of breaking. So these seals don't have a lip on the back that stops them. They're just pressed in until they're flush with the plastic. So you can either push them through or pull them out. It's up to you. But the way that I like to do it, because they grip in there over time so well, I like to release that grip a little bit with some pliers. And so I've got these pliers here, and you just go on the seal itself, what's sticking through, and you want to get on the plastic on either side of it and give it a squeeze just like so. And you see how it kind of deforms the thing, and once it deforms the thing, it's breaking that seal that it has with the plastic around it, and that'll make it a whole lot easier to come out. Let's get it squished just a little bit more. There we go, look at that. Alright, so let's turn this over now. You can see we really broke that seal. And so now, all you got to do is just push these things out, pull them out, whatever you want to do. Now, see how this is real thin right here? You don't want to pry in that part right there. So we're going to work on a different area. We don't want to break that thing. So this one here. Now you can use a screwdriver, or what I like to use is a seal puller. So now that these things are loose, you can get that seal puller in there and put the other end of the seal puller on some meaty part, and then just roll it back and try not to grab the valve cover with the seal puller so you don't gouge the plastic on your way. Just like that. Alright, let's get this other one. Just put the seal puller underneath the part that's loose there. See how easy that just pops out? And then you don't booger up the inside bores so that the new ones can slide in. So now we're going to go ahead and get these spark plug tube seals. I'm just going to use some channel locks just to show you that it doesn't really matter what tool you use. Just make sure that you only grab the rubber part and not the valve cover itself. Give it a squeeze and it'll just come right out just like that. And see, we're not banging on this plastic, and we're not breaking this brittle plastic valve cover. These things are too expensive to mess up. Now that we have the old seals out, we're going to go ahead and get our new seals, and we're going to press them in. Okay? The way that you get these things in is just to push them in. You're going to want to put a little bit of oil on the bore, like so, and also a little bit of oil around the surface that's going to be pressed into this valve cover. Once you get it, just set it in place like that. And remember, this is up, okay? That goes down. This side goes up. You just set it in the bore right there. Put your fingers on either side of it and try and get it kind of started into that bore a little bit. And be careful, again, this real thin part right here is where it has a tendency to break. And you just want to kind of get it started. And once you get it started, find yourself a socket that is just the right size to help you push it down into place. So I've got one here that I'm going to use, this back end, and you want to make sure that that socket goes on this outer lip and does not go through the hole like that. So now that we got one that goes on the outer lip and doesn't go through the hole, come around and watch where I'm pushing this thing. You're just going to put body weight or pressure on this thing, and you're going to push down what you're hearing clicking or whatever are just these bolts that are still in it. And as I push down with my socket, I'm just pressing that in there. Now you can use a press if you want to, but I find that when you do it by hand, you actually have a feel for the pressure you're putting on it versus the press, which is not going to let you know if you're putting too much pressure and might break this thing. There you go. And you just want to push this thing down until it's flush with the plastic. So see, it's still got a little bit of a lip there. You need to go just a little bit more. And it's best to try and find a way to make this thing flat against the workbench. But they've got this little air breather tube that sticks down, so you kind of have to figure out a way to hang it over the edge. But we'll make it work. We'll persevere here. And just kind of press on it. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. Now if you want to, you can even tap it home with a hammer, but again, you run the risk when you're hammering that you're going to crack some of this plastic, so I don't like doing it, but I'm going to show you anyway that can just help you with that last little bit if you're having trouble with just your body weight. Just make sure that it's well supported underneath. It's almost flush. Turn this over. Now, once this socket comes in contact with that plastic valve cover there, you'll hear a sound actually change a little bit. I'm going to let you know that you're done. And we're almost there. May not got picked up on the audio, but there you go. That's flush. So that's how you get them in there. Same thing with these spark plug tubes. We're going to press this in there. So get you one of your new ones. Get a little bit of oil on your finger. Put it on the inside bore where you're pressing into. Put some on the outside of the new seal. That'll help everything slide together. Set it in place, and then these actually seem to push in a little bit easier than the solenoid ones did, so you can press this one in place quite a bit just by hand. Now it's almost completely in place right there, but I'm gonna go ahead and use my socket again so that I'm getting nice even pressure across it. And again, this socket is just big enough to go on the outside of that seal, but not big enough to fall through the hole. I'm going to set it on top, and then I'm going to give it a press. You're not going to be able to see a whole lot as I do this, but I'll lift it, and you can see there we're still sticking up. You want to make sure it goes in even, obviously. Almost there. I really want to refrain from banging on it with the hammer, so I'm trying to get it in there just by body weight, but maybe I don't weigh as much as I used to. It's a good thing, right? Alright, almost flush. Got a little bit more to go right here. Almost. It's hot out here in this shop tonight. Alright. Just for that last little bit, I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple of love taps. Again, you don't want to go too crazy with the hammer. Just enough to make it go down and get flush with the top of the valve cover. Ooh, we're so close. There it is. There it is. Okay, so that's how you get them in there. So you're going to want to clean the mating surface for your timing cover all the way around. And one of the things you might find is that, especially in these areas, like right here and along that seam right there, and then also over here along this parting seam, there a lot of oil will pool up back in here and keep dribbling out through there. And so one of the things that I like to do is try to get as much of that oil out of there. So just take a little compressed air and kind of, you know, blow it out clear, and that way there'll be less of that stuff running into your sealing surface whenever you go to put it all back together. Just a few more quick tips about cleaning the surfaces before we put everything back together. So you want to make sure that everything is clean on the inside and out. You want to make sure that there's no gasket material left, there's no lips from little rubber pieces left on anything like these solenoids, these spark plug tubes, all the way around the valve cover, gasket sealing surfaces, just anything that might have any kind of mess left in it, including the bolt holes. You want to blow those out and make sure there's no RTV stuck in those. They tend to get RTV gooed up inside of them. And then just when you think everything's clean, clean it again with some brake cleaner. One thing also, these little O-rings that sit up here on top of the high pressure fuel pump, they tend to leave a residue, so make sure that you scrape that off and clean that off really well. Try not to get any grit down inside of the engine, inside of any of these bores. And I think that's just about all of the tips for cleanliness that I have. Now, we're here to fix an oil leak, and you don't want to go putting this thing back on and have another oil leak right away. So make sure that you replace these 3 seals on the Gen 2 timing cover. This one down here is for the oil pressure solenoid. This one, of course, is your crank seal, and this one is where the water pipe comes out to mate up with your water pump. Now, the way you replace these, this guy here can be pried out with a seal puller, just under the lip there. Pop it up, try not to hit the aluminum outside, and then to reinstall the new one, just take your old one, set it over the top of it like that, and then tap it in. You know, lubricate the edges or whatever, and tap it in until the edge is flush. That one's installed. And then this guy here, we'll pop it out. This guy here is the same as the ones that that hold in at the top of the valve covers for the cam phaser solenoids. But if you need a part number for this guy down here, here it is. If you need a part number for this water, where the water pipe comes out, this is the one. Alright, and then the crank seal is available just about everywhere. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this oil pressure seal out. Again, we're going to use the pliers just to squeeze the plastic part. Kind of hard to do with one hand here. So once you squeeze this thing in with the pliers a little bit, then you can just pop it out. Just like that. And this is just a smooth bore. There's no lip on this either. And so to put the new one in, you're just going to want to come in from the outside in here, take your new one, set it in place, and then lube up the outside of the seal and the outside of the bore here, and then press it in place with, you know, a seal pusher, or in this case a socket of the right size, just to push it down. And on the aluminum here, you can get a little bit more aggressive than those plastic valve covers, so you can set that on here, put that there, and then use a hammer to set it on home. Alright, so let's get this oil pressure solenoid seal in there. I put a little lubrication on the bore and on this seal. We're just going to push it in place till it's flush, and for the most part it starts with the hand there, no problem. I've got a socket that's the right size to fit on this thing, and I'm just going to put pressure on it with my socket. Now the socket's big enough to push on that seal, but not big enough to go through the hole. And so what happens is, whenever it gets flush with the hole, as you see there, it is now flush with that hole, and because I chose a socket that's the right size, it can't go through that hole, then I know I'm done installing that seal. Won't have an oil leak there. It's time to remove this water pipe seal. So you just get you a seal puller, put it under the lip of this thing, and make sure that when you pull this out with the seal puller itself doesn't gouge the aluminum right there, or else you can cause a leak or an area where it might leak. But that's that, and then we're going to press the new one in from this side again till it's flush. So just clean up your bore really good, check, make sure there's no RTV or any kind of plastic still on there. You know, give it a good little cleaning up, nice and gentle. Just make sure again that there's nothing going to inhibit the new one from making a seal there. Alright, so let's install our new seal for the water outlet. We just set it in place like that, and get you a seal installer or giant socket or whatever you want, and just make sure that it fits the right size. Kind of give it a little bit of a press in place until this is flush. See, I'm just using body pressure, just pushing it in with my hands. It doesn't take that much. If you need to, you can tap it home with the hammer, but it just went in slick as could be, just with pressure. So you shouldn't need too much to really bring that home. All right, let's have a look and see what our seals look like. So that seal is nice and brand new. We won't have a leak of coolant or oil around that pipe there. New crank seal, definitely want to replace those. And like I said, to install that, just take your old crank seal, as long as you didn't booger it up too much, and it sits over this, and it keeps you from damaging this floppy piece right here. Sits on there real nice, and then you can just tap it in there around the edges. And then the new oil pressure seal right here, it's just like one of the ones that goes to the solenoids on the top of the valve covers. Press in from this side. Now, one thing I wanted to note also is about this where the water pipe comes out. See, that new seal has a gap between this flap right here, which seals against the pipe, and the outer rim. The old seal, that gap is no longer present because it's sort of lost a little bit of its sealing capacity. It may still feel like it's fitting tight on that pipe, but as you can see, it just has lost a little bit of its elasticity, so it's not as good as a new seal. Alright, time to come clean. So get yourself a old rag of some kind, this old dish towel, but you can use shop rags, whatever. Preferably not paper towels, because this brake clean will make that paper towel in most cases kind of degrade and fall apart, and then you'll get little pieces of fuzz all over the place on something like this. So you just want to go along the surfaces you're going to be gluing. Just keep doing this, cleaning it with the brake cleaner until your rag is no longer picking up any kind of residue of oil or dirt or RTV or anything like that. Get this surface as clean as possible. The reason why this thing was leaking from the factory potentially is because they didn't get it clean, and the silicone didn't seal up right, or there was maybe an air gap in their silicone. Also, make sure that you get all these little studs that stick out with the hidden bolts. Get those nice and clean. You're going to put RTV on all of those places. Do the same thing to the engine side, but as you can see, we're still picking up a little bit of gunk here. Just keep doing this till it's clean as a whistle. Alright, so once you are happy that the surfaces, the mating surfaces, are as clean as can be, you want to make sure that you also got these hidden bolts. There's one there, there is one right there, and then there's one underneath the tensioner right there. Make sure that those things are good and clean, and then all the way along. And if you blew the oil out of these little crevices right in here, then you won't have it sort of oozing into your mix on either side. So just keep those nice and clean. So the RTV we're going to be using is this Felpro gray RTV, and it takes a full day to cure up completely. But this stuff works really well, and of course the gray on the gray of the aluminum isn't going to be a standout sight, you know, like sometimes you see where somebody used like an orange silicone or RTV on something and you're like, oh yeah, that's been apart. Well, this won't show that way. Alright, so we've got a continuous bead, as it says in the instructions, all the way around the edge here, either 1/8 to 1/4. This stuff's supposed to dry pretty quick, so the best way to make sure you get a continuous bead is to run your finger along it and smear it really nicely through everything. And I've also put a bead on the vehicle itself, so if we miss something here, again, don't forget these little spots along here for these hidden bolts. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and, I can't film it while I do it, but I'm going to go ahead and stick this thing in place and bolt it up with the bolts that I've cleaned up. Okay, so we got all of the bolts back in around the perimeter, including our little 10mm stud down here, and the hidden bolts inside of here, up here, and this one too. So just make sure that you get those 3 hidden bolts. And you know, everybody's got an opinion about whether you torque them immediately or let them set up for a little while and then torque them. I'll let you guys fight over that, but I'll give you the torque specs down below. Now it's time to change all of the gaskets on these valve covers. So this is where the high pressure fuel pump bolts up. So I've just picked out the old gasket, and you can see there's some oil and a little bit of grit and junk down in there. So just get you a Q-tip or a paper towel or something like that. Get down in that groove there and clean all that up real good before you put the new gasket in. There we go, nice and clean. Stuff the new gasket down inside of there. This is a Felpro kit for the valve covers. Oh, what's the number on this thing? Oh, it comes with valve covers and a bunch of other stuff. But there you go, VS 50993R. On the other side, we've got the outside perimeter gasket that you can just peel out like so. Again, clean the groove really nicely. Get all the junk out of that groove so it'll seal up good. We already pressed in our new spark plug tubes and our solenoid gaskets, and then we'll also need these intake manifold gaskets, and all of that comes in this kit from Felpro. And if any of these gaskets are tough, just get you a little pick or whatever and kind of dig under the edge of it until you can pull it out. Okay, so now we got the new gasket in around the perimeter, and just sort of push it in there, and it's kind of fat, and so it'll generally stay in there for the most part. Got our new intake gaskets on here, so this one is ready. We'll go ahead and move over and do the other one here from the driver's side. Same thing with this driver's side valve cover. Just take the old gasket out of its groove, clean the groove. We've already replaced our solenoid seals, our spark plug tube seals, and we'll go ahead and replace these intake manifold gaskets as well. And just like that, there we go. New perimeter gasket, new intake manifold gaskets, all fresh and ready to go. That way we won't have to come in here and do it again for another leak soon. It's almost time to go back on with our harmonic balancer here, but make sure that you clean that surface right there where that seal rides really good. You see how it's got some baked on oil? There's a little bit of a lip, so to speak, from that oil, and so just clean that off real good. A little really super fine, you know, sandpaper, not sandpaper, but you know, just super fine Scotch-Brite or something like that with some good cleaner, brake cleaner. Get that off of there. Alright, now this thing's ready to go back on. Just like I said, a little fine Scotch-Brite and some brake clean. Take all that gunk off of there, make it nice and polished, and make sure that you go around it, not back and forth on that thing while you're sanding it, so it doesn't create any sort of scratches that might cause a leak. To put the harmonic balancer on, you're going to need one of these tools here. I like this one. It's an OEM 27306. Basically, it's going to have some instructions with it, but you just thread one of these rods in there, and then you push that harmonic balancer on with this bearing slash nut. Now when reinstalling a crank harmonic balancer pulley like this that's pressed on and has a seal like this one, it's always a good idea to coat those surfaces of both the seal and the harmonic balancer with some grease, just to make sure that they get to know one each other and play nice together. The way this harmonic balancer installer works, you just set your harmonic balancer on the end of the crank snout there, thread in the bolt that fits it, and then run down this nut with the little bearing on the front of it, and it'll press on the inside of this pulley and push it back onto the crank. So you just turn this big nut right here, and so you can do that with a big wrench of some kind. You just keep tightening that center nut until it bottoms out. And that's how you know when you're done. Okay, so the nut is harder to turn now. That means that the harmonic balancer snout has touched the front of the crankshaft where it butts up against it, and you are done tightening this thing down. So you can back off this nut here and then take out this bolt, which is in this tool a 19 mil. Without having the right tools, these jobs can be really more difficult than they need to be. So this is the joy of wrenching, and part of the way that we keep the joy in things is having the right tools. You can probably rent one of these at your local auto parts store for free, or if you're interested, I'll put links in the description for all the tools as I normally do. Now that we have pressed the harmonic balancer in place, we can go ahead and bolt it back up. And so this bolt that holds that harmonic balancer to the crank is considered a one-time use only bolt. So you'll need another one. Here's the part number if you're interested in buying one from Ford. But you will need to reuse the little washer. So we'll put that on the new bolt and come up in here. You can see how much of the crank is sticking out, or how much of the crank is inside of that pulley whenever this thing's fully installed. So you'll put this thing in place and then tighten it down. I'll put the torque spec below. Alright, well let's go ahead and close up the engine here just so we don't have anything else fall into it. And so, once you're assured that you've cleaned the surfaces and mating surfaces for the valve covers very well, manufacturers usually like for you to put a little dab where the timing cover meets the cylinder head, a little dab of RTV, and then we'll slide the new valve covers with all of their new gaskets over all of these parts. Now, as you can see, I've kind of tethered back as best I could all of the wiring and kind of pulled it out of the way. Again, you're trying to make things like this easier on yourself, and so instead of fighting with all of those wires falling down on you and getting in the way and knocking your valve cover gaskets off and all the other hassles, or heaven forbid you pinch one underneath the valve cover and tighten it down, you know, just pull them out of the way. Use some little bungee cords like I've got here or whatever, just tie it out of the way. That way it's not going to be a hassle for you. So I'm about to put the driver's side valve cover on, so before you put this down, it may be a little tough to get these towels out of here whenever that's in the way. So just go ahead and pull whatever you've used to block off these ports now, and only now. And so we'll set this thing in place here. All of the bolts are tethered to it, so you don't have to worry about where they go and all of that. And as long as they're clean, as long as your threads are clean, these things ought to just screw right in. Put a little lube around each of the spark plug tubes, a little lube inside of each of your gaskets here. It'll help things just slide down in place a lot easier. Alright, so once you set the thing in place and push it down, you'll feel the spark plug tubes go up through your little seals here. Just give them a once over and make sure that they look like they're seated correctly. Go around the edge and make sure that it looks like your valve cover gasket is still in place, your intake gaskets are still in place, and as long as you've tied everything up out of the way it should have been easy to just come up and over and drop it right on top of the spark plug tubes and push it down till it just kind of seats. And then once it's seated, you ought to be able to just twist the first few threads at least of each one of these bolts in. If they're not lined up, something ain't right. Take it apart and try it again. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the passenger side valve cover and put it in place. So come in here, remove your protection for the ports, and grab your valve cover, and as long as you've got everything tied up and out of the way, you ought to be able to just kind of slide it in where it needs to be. You want to line up your spark plug tubes. It's kind of tough to do with one hand, but I'm trying to get you guys the best video as possible so that you can do this too. Skip the mechanic shop. There we go. Alright, so we got her lined up there. Just want to take a quick look underneath real quick and just make sure that none of our gaskets fell out. They're pressed into the slot around the edge of the valve cover, but sometimes they can kind of get knocked loose whenever you're doing this. So I'll just kind of look under there and make sure that it's still in place, and it is. Alright. Sorry for the terrible filming. It's one-handed. It's the best I can do. Okay. Alright. So now that it's set down in place, and what I mean by in place, you see how my spark plug tubes are all lined up? Then I'm going to give it a little pressure from above and wiggle so that it snaps down on top of the spark plug tubes. Believe it or not, that's the tightest fit, is the spark plug tubes. Okay, so I gave it a little wiggle and a push. You can see the spark plug tube is kind of sticking up through these gaskets now here. There we go, got the back one now. All right, the front one, there we go. And the gasket is already installed here for a high pressure fuel pump. The gasket's popped through the solenoids right there. So we'll see, can we turn these and grab threads? Yes, we can. So we know that that's lined up. We'll take one over here and do the same. And I'm feeling threads grab, so we're lined up and we are good to tighten that down. Okay, so we've got both of our valve covers pushed down in place, and so because there's still ample opportunity for something to fall down into the intake, we're going to go ahead and reinstall our little pieces of whatever you want to use, but I'm using a napkin here to keep anything from falling down inside of the cylinders. Just don't forget to remove these, or else it'll get ingested in your engine when you start it up and it'll run funny. So now that the harmonic balancer is back installed, we'll go ahead and put our stretchy belt back on. So the way that I like to do it is to put the stretchy belt back behind the crank pulley, and then put it on your AC pulley, and then attach a couple of zip ties to hold it into the groove where it's supposed to go. And then you can turn your crankshaft with an 18mm, and while you do that, it's kind of hard to do this with one hand, but you need to use your other hand to keep this belt right in that groove where it's supposed to go, and then just turn this and it'll rotate itself right on and in place. There we go. So one quick rotation of the crank and stretchy belt is in place on both pulleys, and so you can go ahead and cut off your zip ties and away you go. So in the interest of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. The rest of putting this thing back together is just like I showed you taking it apart, okay? So just go back and follow how I took it apart and do that. And, you know, just lubricate any seals that are going to go back together, make sure they're in good shape, replace them if you have to. And then just kind of work your way back up through the system the opposite of you took it apart. And, you know, If you want to see other parts of the series on this Gen 2 EcoBoost 3.5 on the Ford F-150, or in this case Expedition, check out my other videos. If this helped you out in some way, do me a favor and help me out too. Hit that like, subscribe, share with some of your buddies that also have EcoBoost. It really helps us to reach a greater audience and help other people. Thank you guys for your time. I hope this helped you a lot. Y'all have a wonderful day. God bless.